Now, Sweden, well, the European Union's top court has made a ruling on a ban on something called snus. Now, have you ever heard of snus? It's a moist snuff tobacco product, and it's made by Swedish Match. And the European Union's top court has banned it. So let's find a bit more about that. I'm delighted to be joined on the line now by Professor Gerry Stimson, who's the Emeritus Professor at Imperial College London, and also a trustee of the new Nicotine Alliance. A very good evening to you.
Hello, John. Hi.
Thanks so much for coming on the program. I'd never heard of this product. I mean, I know it's snuff. I know what snuff is, but what is this product?
Well, it's pronounced snus.
Snus.
It comes from, most people won't have heard of it because it's banned throughout the European Union except in Sweden. So it's a kind of a bit of a Scandinavian pastime. It's available in Sweden. It's also available in Norway. And it's a kind of a ground-up tobacco, either sold as a loose powder, but more commonly it's pre-packed in a small tea bag-like sachet, sort of about the size of your fingernail, I guess, and it's popped under the top lip, between the gum and the lip. And as you suck on it, the saliva releases the nicotine.
So absolutely
it's a way
disgusting.
of getting a nicotine hit without smoking a cigarette.
And I bet it does wonders for your teeth.
Yes, probably not good for your teeth, but then nor is smoking.
No, that's certainly true. So how? I mean, is this an old product? I mean, if you go out on a first date with somebody, do you say, would you like some of my snus?
It's not a shareable thing. Well, it's sort of a shareable thing, but not perhaps in the way that cigarettes used to be shared when, people used to offer somebody a cigarette. That was polite to do. It's been around for a couple of 100 years, fell out of fashion in Sweden with the rise of cigarettes, but started to come back into fashion again around about 20 years ago. And what's happened is that it's displacing smoking. So Sweden now has the lowest rate of smoking across the European Union. There's only 5% of people smoke in Sweden. That's about a fifth of the average across the European Union.
And I imagine it's dangerous.
Well, it's not dangerous. It's got a bit of a bad press, and the court and the European Court of Justice, and we'll talk about that perhaps in a minute, and the European Union legislators have talked about it as being harmful to health and addictive. But when you look at the data, it actually has a surprisingly clean bill of health. I won't say it's safe, but it's much, much safer than smoking. So, if you wanted a sort of rule of thumb, if you compared it with smoking a cigarette, it's probably 99% safer.
Really?
And I have been concerned. Yeah, it really is. I mean, firstly, you're not inhaling. So you're not inhaling the burnt tars and toxins. So when you smoke a cigarette, you're inhaling about 4,000 chemicals. So you're not getting that damage to your lungs, and you're not inhaling the carbon monoxide. So immediately you're getting rid of a whole bunch of things which are a problem when you smoke. There have been concerns with, does it cause mouth cancer?
I was going to say, because it sounds a wee bit like chewing tobacco, which is very popular in the Appalachians and places like that in the States. And I always understood that was carcinogenic.
There are elevated risks with chewing tobacco. How snus differs from those is that it's not, it's prepared in a way so it's not fermented, and it's pasteurized, which prevents the growth of toxins, and it's kept refrigerated. So it's a much lower risk than chewing tobaccos. But having that, chewing tobaccos are actually a lot lower risk than smoking. I mean, I wouldn't recommend chewing tobaccos, but in the big scheme of things, best not to burn tobacco. If you want to use nicotine, don't burn it, because it's the smoke that leads to illness and premature death.
So listen, this interview is not going the way that I was expecting. I thought you were going to tell me lots of horrors about this. So that begs the question, was the court right to ban the product?
Well, I was involved in a challenge to the ban. As I said, the product is banned across Europe except in Sweden. Sweden was allowed an exemption when it joined the European Union. The ban actually goes back to Edwina Curry back in the 1989 or something like that. And then it was adopted across Europe. So clearly, in my view, the ban is daft because people want to stop. Most smokers want to stop smoking, and they want safe. It's difficult to stop smoking, and we've found with e-cigarettes that if you can provide people with a safer alternative, it's kind of switching from smoking to e-cigarettes or switching from smoking to snus is. It's kind of a choice that many people have made, and it brings, it helps them avoid health harms. So, I've been working in this and related fields for a number of years, and I certainly think that giving people the choice of safer products is sensible. But the court didn't agree with that.
Is there a concern that it would act as a gateway to other types of tobacco consumption?
Yes, and that's the argument we hear with e-cigarettes as well.
Although there's no evidence with e-cigarettes at all on that.
At the risk of being flippant, I say, e-cigarettes are a gateway away from smoking, not a gateway into smoking. But, the fears that have been raised, and, going back 10, 15, 20 years, there were doubts about how safe snus is, but there's been a huge accumulation of evidence in the meantime. But the legislators and the court, they're really saying that the science is inconclusive. And when the science is inconclusive, then the legislators have got the discretion to ban. But you're quite right. They say it's a threat to young people, and that snus is harmful and addictive. Those are the main points that are raised by the legislators and by the countries which opposed the case to the court case recently, where we tried to challenge the ban.
Sweden never fails to amaze. Have you ever been to an off-license in Sweden?
No, I haven't.
Well, they don't have normal off-licenses like we do, where it's kind of cheery and where you go in and buy a nice bottle of wine.
Yeah.
They're dimly lit. They're run by the government. Right. They only operate in very short times, opening hours. Yeah. And there's an air of furtiveness about them. Honestly, you'd think you're going in to buy crack cocaine the way everyone's behaving.
Sure.
It's just the whole place is laden with guilt. And and it's very odd. It's the same in Iceland as well. They have the same system as well. And again, it's very furtive. Iceland, in fact, is the only place I've ever been to where I saw a man break down in tears because the staff wouldn't give him alcohol. It was a Friday. Friday at sort of 6 o'clock, and they were about to close for the weekend, and he would have had no access till Monday. It was quite heartbreaking to watch. Really, both countries have big alcohol problems, of course, hence perhaps the reaction. A very interesting story. Thank you so much for explaining it to me. That's Professor Gerry Stimson, thank you, who's the Emeritus Professor at Imperial College London and trustee of the new Nicotine Alliance, talking about the ban on, I'll try and say it in a more Swedish way this time, snus, which has been banned. It is a type of moist tobacco, as we've just been hearing. It is 25 to 7, and you're listening to John Nicholson here on Talk Radio.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.